Hello everyone. It's so nice to be back with you at our virtual open rooms. For those of you that saw me talking about this before I came online, I'm going to be talking about psychological safety today. I've just got back from Jaipur in India, and for anyone that wants to know, yes, the food is amazing. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I'd never been to North India, so very different environment, beautiful setup. I got to stay in a palace, which was amazing, and talk about psychological safety with a senior leadership team for a couple of days. It's part of a much bigger program that I'm running with Shamal Vallabhji. We've been running it for a year. That was part 3. The first part was in Kerala, and the last part, I think, is in Goa. So it's been a phenomenal experience training that across India. And I thought before we go into the end of the year, I would just talk a little bit about psychological safety and why I think it is probably 2024's most critical need, and just share some information with you all about what it is and how it works and why we need it. So do pop messages in the chat box. Last time I came on and did our virtual open rooms, I had so much feedback from you guys, so much engagement. Love seeing you all here. So please do put feedback, questions, comments in the chat box. My colleague Vinary is here with me behind the scenes. She'll put your questions up. She'll put your comments up. She'll make sure that everything is reflected on the screen. So if you've got questions, comments, or just ideas, do let me know, and we'll keep them coming. I'm only going to be live for about 15 or 20 minutes. The whole point of Open Room and this particular part of Open Room, these virtual open rooms, is to share with you, just to share a snapshot, some short form content from all of the depths of content that I spend my life creating all over the world. As you know, spend my life on a plane. Most of the time I'm running workshops or giving keynotes around content that connects to empathy, to understanding, to listening-led leadership. And psychological safety is a huge part of that. So come join us at Open Room. If you want to hear a bit more, you can just scan that QR code that's on the screen right there. Open Room is an open community. That means anyone can come. It's totally free. I'm not going to charge you a subscription. I'm never going to email you and tell you that there's 24 hours left for an introductory price, right? Open Room is a platform for everyone. We share tips, tricks, content, webinars. We had our first open movie night on Sunday where we all watched a movie and commented and discussed. People share advice, thoughts, loads of content going on there. It sits on WhatsApp as well as Instagram broadcast. And of course, we do lots of training as well. So this is just a very short piece of that live on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and on Instagram. Where we're going to be talking about psychological safety. But do scan the code and come join us if you would like. We're also creating some subgroups within there, like the movie night, where people are interested in sharing more, just learning how to listen, learning why empathy is so important, and really learning about this. We are more alike than we are different, right? And that's the whole point of Open Room, to overcome loneliness and to connect people in a new way. So that's why I'm here. That's what we're doing, in our spare time. But let's start by looking at this quote. Okay, this is from Brené Brown. She obviously talks a lot around empathy, around vulnerability and relationships. And she said this. She said, "There is no innovation or creativity without failure." Okay, so I'm going to leave that there for a second and ask you, why do you think I have put that quote on the screen today? What has this quote got to do with psychological safety? Right? Innovation, creativity, failure. Why is that relevant? I'm just going to give you a couple of seconds to ponder that. Put it in the chat box if you're there. Vinary, please do pop over to LinkedIn. Open that on your browser as well, Vinary, so that you can comment to people, you can chat to people, because LinkedIn doesn't always come up live in real time over here. So yeah, if Vinary checks over there, I can make sure I'm following you guys on LinkedIn as well. But let me know what you think. What has this got to do with psychological safety? Now, when I asked this question to my recent group in Jaipur, we had an extremely long conversation around failure off the back of this quote, which is, of course, what I'm prompting you to think about. In order to innovate, in order to be creative, in order to have new ideas, challenge the norm, be strategic, think outside the box or in the box or anywhere else, you need to be able to be comfortable with failure, right? because nothing great ever came from a comfort zone, right? We have to have the space to fail, the space to try, the space to step out and do things differently, right? And of course, to create an environment, an organizational environment where failure is okay, you need, you've guessed it, high levels of psychological safety. So if your organization needs innovation, needs strategic thinking or creativity in any form, then psychological safety is going to be really, really important for you and your business in 2024. So what is it? And according to Google, by the way, psychological safety is now noted as in the top 3 most important facets of an organization in order to drive success. Okay, so this isn't a nice to have. Well, it's very nice to have, but it's not just a nice to have. This is actually critical for sustaining and creating an environment that drives performance. Okay, so psychological safety is fundamental to creating a culture that encourages collaboration, innovation, failure, conversation, mutual respect, right? Because if you don't feel safe to speak up, to speak out, to share your opinion, to share ideas, then quite frankly, you won't, right? So the concept of psychological safety has broad implications, really, for all areas of professional success, right? Whether that's engagement and motivation in your teams. And of course, as we know, if you have low engagement, you have low performance, low output, low levels of motivation, right? It impacts decision-making because again, if the environment is not safe, you are not gathering insight, you're not gathering information from everybody across the organization. You have a significant lack of intel, of insight to make really good decisions. You're not hearing the voices and opinions and insight from people across the business. And of course, it encourages learning, right? Learning and improvement. If you do not feel safe, you won't try, right? You won't step out. You won't try and learn new skills. You won't step into a new promotion or up to a new level of leadership, okay? So fundamentally, psychological safety is impacting everything from how your staff feel to how they're engaged, how they communicate, the decisions they're making, and whether or not they're learning and wanting to develop and improve. And Vinnery, I can see some comments in the comment box over here on StreamYard. So perhaps have a look at that and see if we can pop that on the screen. That last sentence there is quite important. We're talking about moving people from the anxiety zone to the learning zone, right? And only when you do that can you reach high performance, okay? So high performance is fundamentally the movement of going from a place of discomfort or anxiety to being able to learn. So psychological safety, and I know it's a new term for many of you, particularly if you're in Asia and Africa side of the world. This is quite a new system and framework for the workplace. But fundamentally, if you are looking to drive performance in 2024, as well as the health and wellness of your people, psychological safety is an incredibly important step to doing that. Now, do all organizations need it? Well, the answer is probably yes. If you have any of these 3 areas that are on the screen, right? Levels of uncertainty, levels of complexity, and some form of interdependence, which means relationships between people or communication between people, the answer is yes, you need psychological safety, okay? And I mean, again, please comment in the box or send me a thumbs up if your business has any level of uncertainty or complexity in the year 2024 ahead. I will be amazed if any of you say, no, we are entirely clear, entirely certain, and there's no complexity at all. It's going to be super simple and easy, right? Because all of our businesses are living in an extremely complex world, right? It's unstable. It's politically and socially unbalanced. We're seeing all types of social, political, and economical sort of chaos and change out there. And because of that, we are living actually in a constant state of stress and uncertainty and often fear, okay? So if you feel that you are living in any of these realities, and I'm going to guess that's 100% of you, then the need for psychological safety is there. Thank you for your comments. I can see some popping in over here on StreamYard, so hopefully they can come up on the screen in a minute, and I will answer them once they're there. Meanwhile, keep sharing, keep commenting over on LinkedIn, and I will come back. I did this last time as well, and I will answer all of you personally if they're not here. Vinnery, if you are seeing things on LinkedIn, feel free just to copy and paste them from LinkedIn into the chat box here, and then I can answer them live online as well. But if not, I promise I will come back to you, because sometimes the technology does have a delay. So what is it? Okay, what is psychological safety? Here's a few sort of parts of that definition, right? In a psychologically safe team, members feel that they can do the below, right? They can take risks. I touched on that earlier. They are able to step outside the comfort zone, to do something different, to take a risk. They're able to express ideas, concerns, or opinions. And that's not always negative things, right? This is not all about sort of speaking up in difficult situations, but just sharing, being creative, having ideas, looking at different things, speaking up and admitting mistakes. That's why I started with Brené Brown's quote, right? All around innovation and creativity. If you want to drive these things in your organization, you have to be able to say, well, that one didn't work. Again, mistake has this really negative connotation, but mistakes are part of what allows us to grow, right? If I counted all the mistakes that we've made in my team this year, right, there'd be a huge list. It doesn't matter. The important thing, particularly now at the end of the year, is that we look at them and we learn from them and we reframe them, right? Maybe it was a mistake or maybe it was just an opportunity to learn, right? But either way, we need teams and organizations that can do all of these things without fear of negative consequences, right? People need to be able to speak up. People need to be able to share. People need to be able to talk about, their ideas and their thoughts. So that's what psychological safety allows you to do, right? Allows you to create an environment where people can talk and share and have really good ideas, okay? The other thing that's really important about this theme is that research and all the data around this shows that psychological safety is not about you, okay? It's about us. It's a group phenomenon. You can't create safety on your own, right? You have to create safety in groups. So when we're talking about psychological safety, this is not about individuals feeling better, although they will. It is about the group. It is about the team, right? It's about people working together in that team to create safety, to speak up, to innovate, to design, to create, all of those types of things, okay? So when people work closely together, they will experience similar levels of psychological safety. So it's quite rare to run a questionnaire or a survey and find that half the group feels differently to the other half, right? Psychological safety is something that we create in teams. We are pro-social animals, and it tends to be something that we embed and share across our teams. So I want to share 4 benefits, 4 reasons why I think the answer to the question, will psychological safety be key in 2024? Why I think the answer is yes, okay? And here's the first set of benefits. The first one is around engagement and motivation. As you know, you want to drive performance, you want to create a shift, you want to rebrand, you want to relaunch, you want to set new products into the market. You need your team to be engaged and motivated, because if they're not going to be doing their jobs, they're not going to be reaching their potential, they're not going to be growing your brand or your business, okay? So psychological safety promotes active participation and involvement. It encourages people to step into their role. Data shows people work longer hours and create more when there's higher levels of engagement and motivation. We also know people are more loyal. Some recent data I saw yesterday is when people feel engaged by their leadership, they state that they're willing to stay on average 33% longer in their roles, right? So people are staying in their jobs for a longer period of time. They're more committed, they're more connected, they're happier. And it creates a far more empowering environment that is driving that motivation up, okay? So there are very few business drivers that do not improve when engagement and motivation goes up. As you know, when people are engaged, when they're motivated, all levers improve, including output per capita and profit, okay? So the first benefit, the first reason that I think psychological safety will be key in 2024 is because of this. So if you have teams that today are suffering with low engagement or low motivation, you're struggling to get morale, you're struggling to kind of get team camaraderie, then perhaps looking at psychological safety and some of these workshops and training courses could help you rebuild that team. The second is around decision-making, right? So if you feel that in your team, you need better decision-making, right? Maybe faster, maybe more efficient, maybe less by committee, maybe just more successful decision-making, right? Team decision-making is directly impacted by safety, right? As I said earlier, people feel able to use their voice to share their perspectives. You need to create an environment where people know that there is an open dialogue. And that is relevant across all cultures, whether you have quite a structured culture or a hierarchical culture, whether it's more open, flat, and perhaps, let's say, modern, whether you are in a hybrid workplace or a physical sort of back to office workspace, right? Dialogue and diversity are critical to driving better decision-making, more diverse, more open, more inclusive decision-making, right? So we need to be able to create environments where constructive criticism is received well, where people feel able to give feedback and understand and respond, not react, but respond to feedback, okay? So your decision-making is going to be improved and your conflict resolution is going to be improved. In fact, your conflicts will decrease, but that's a whole other module altogether. When psychological safety goes up, the amount of conflicted conversation and communication decreases, right? So if you want to have less conflict in the workplace, psychological safety is going to create that and make that a reality for you in 2024. As I said, fundamentally looking at more informed, more inclusive, diverse, interesting sets of decision-making that can impact your business next year. The third benefit, the third reason that psychological safety is going to be critical in 2024 is this, okay? If you want a learning culture, if you want people to grow, if you want them to step up, step into new roles, often we have less people doing more jobs at the moment, then you need more psychological safety, because psychological safety, as we started, reduces the fear of failure, which means people will try. It means they will give it a go. It means they will try and take on more or challenge themselves more openly, okay? So cultures that drive continuous learning, improvement, and development are improved when there's higher levels of psychological safety. We also know that in multi-generational workplaces like we have today, people stay longer and work harder when they feel they're able to learn and grow. For millennials and also Gen Zs, the opportunity to learn and grow is in their top 3 motivators and is often higher than pay. Okay, so not only are you driving more learning and continuous improvement, but you're also going to drive recruitment and retention of people, motivation in the workplace, and incentivization of the teams that you already have. So benefit 3 is around learning and growth. Benefit 4, a culture of empathy. It had to come in here somewhere, right? For those of you that know me well, you'll know that I specialize in organizational empathy and creating more empathy in the world of work and the world at large. And psychological safety is a critical piece. So this is actually how I got into this training. I got into training psychological safety through my work in empathy because the tie is so deeply connected. And if you look at recent reports that have come out in the last few weeks, you'll see that this need for empathy in the workplace has never been higher. We have up to 80% of employees demanding more empathetic leadership and cultures. And psychological safety is a part of the path to creating that, right? When you have higher levels of psych safety, you see more honest conversation, more open communication, more honesty in the diversity of our roles. And that drives understanding, right? Because how are you ever going to understand people if they won't communicate with you, particularly if you have a D&I, a diversity and inclusivity agenda, or need in 2024, right? If you want to include more people, be more diverse, whether that's women in the workplace or any other area of diversity and inclusion, you need psychological safety in order to drive empathy. Empathy is our ability to understand each other, to really see the perspective of others, to see the perspective they need to share it with you. Again, taking that cycle back to psychological safety, okay? So psychological safety, it promotes trust and connected relationships. When you feel safe, you're more likely to trust each other. And it drives an openness to listen and really value listening-led leadership, which is, of course, what I train all around the world every single week. Okay, so those are the 4 benefits that I wanted to put up in under 20 minutes today to really talk about why I think psychological safety is indeed one of the most critical needs for 2024. Okay, there is so much more I could tell you, but I promised you a short live today, and I'm on 19 minutes. So I hope that just sparked some interest. I hope it gave you something to think about as you go into December. I hope it encouraged you to see how important psychological safety is. This is not a nice to have. This is not just about creating nice, safe workplaces. It's about performance, growth, learning, development. It's about profit. It's fundamentally about what Empathy Everywhere, my platform, stands for, which is balancing humanism, people, and capitalism, profit. So if you want to make sure that you grow both your people and your profit, and of course they impact each other, psychological safety might just be the way to do that. So for those of you that don't know me, my name's Mimi. My platform is Empathy Everywhere. You can see the URL just there, empathyeverywhere.co. We are launching our first academy full of courses in January, so do come back and check us out then. Meanwhile, pop on over to that QR code and join us at OpenRoom. If you want to hear more of this, as I said, we're doing tips and tricks and webinars and movie nights and virtual connections, as well as a host of in the real world events across the cities that we travel to, which are predominantly across Asia Pacific and the Middle East, but perhaps coming to America and Europe sometime in 2024. Do come join us. It's an open community. It's for everyone. It's about open conversation, learning empathy, and overcoming loneliness, connecting with the non-like-minded. Because if you only ever connect with people just like you, how are you going to join and create more empathy in the world? So come join us over at OpenRoom. We live on WhatsApp and Instagram broadcasts, and I would be happy to have you there. Meanwhile, thanks for joining me live. I will come back and answer all your comments and queries and questions on LinkedIn, because experience tells me that these live sessions are always out of sync with your questions. So in the next couple of hours, I will come back, I will answer them, I will respond to all of your comments. And if you want these slides or any further information, come on over to OpenRoom or just DM me and I will share them. For now, from me, happy December. For those of you celebrating, I hope you have a wonderful couple of weeks ahead. And for those of you that aren't, I hope the end of the year brings some peace and respite before 2024 kicks off in just a few weeks. I'm Mimi. It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you soon.